People often get caught up in finding that one trick that will instantly help them take better photos. It's actually really simple. You just need to get yourself a fancier beanie. In all seriousness, I wish I could give you the one trick that will change your photography forever. But the truth is, I haven't found it yet. But what I can tell you is the only way you're going to get better at taking photos is by taking photos. I know it sounds simple, but it's the truth. Before you can get the most out of practice, you need a solid understanding of the fundamentals. You don't need to master every setting, but you need to get to a point where changing settings doesn't slow you down. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. So what's a baseline you should be working towards? Here are the essentials you should know. Aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, what they do and how they affect your photos, how to use aperture priority and shutter priority modes, autofocus basics, including switching between single and continuous focus, as well as selecting focus points, reading your camera's light meter, how to use exposure compensation to correct your exposure when your camera's light meter isn't giving you the best results, basic composition techniques, and how to enable a grid in your viewfinder to help you use them. And here's something most people skip. Read your camera's manual. I know, no one wants to, but it's the easiest way to learn what your camera's capable of. You don't need to memorize it, but knowing where to find things when you need them is a game changer. This isn't about memorizing settings. It's about making adjustments second nature. Because once these things feel easy, you'll be able to free up the mental space to focus on creativity and composition, the things that actually make a photo great. If some of this still feels unfamiliar, that's totally fine. I have videos covering some of these key fundamentals, and I'll be making more in the future. So if you're in that camp, make sure to check them out. Expanding your knowledge of photography is important, but no amount of blog posts, YouTube videos, or books is going to give you the experience you need if you're not putting what you've learned into practice. The goal is to get out of a mode of overthinking and into a mode of taking action. Even if you're still struggling with the basics, the best way to solidify them is to go out and experiment. Ask yourself, what happens when I change this setting? Tweak the composition. Try it. See what happens. Another common trap is thinking gear equals better photos. Yes, this is a coffee mug, not a lens, but you get the idea. Sure, nice gear helps, but it's a small factor in what makes a great photo. Your own creativity and skill matters so much more than the gear you're using. There's nothing wrong with nice gear or collecting it. I'm guilty of that. Many of us are. But in almost all cases, lack of gear isn't what's holding you back. Great lighting and composition will do more for your shot than any fancy camera ever will. But I will admit, there are a handful of situations that gear can hold you back. For example, wildlife photography like this is next to impossible to do without a telephoto lens. But instead of going into debt for the latest and greatest gear, or just giving up, get creative. Take a different approach. Try wider framing for wildlife, or use a tripod with a slower lens. You may have to deal with some limitations, but the key is, use what you have access to. The more time you spend shooting, the better you'll get. The biggest thing that's improved my photography is time behind the camera. Now I know I'm not a National Geographic photographer, or even in the same league, but I have noticed a huge difference when I'm shooting regularly. I've been taking photos for a long time, but I've also had long periods of time where I wasn't consistent. In 2021, I only picked up my camera once for a single trip. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth. Nobody's perfect. When I wasn't shooting regularly, I noticed my skills got rusty. Once your fundamentals are second nature, it's like riding a bike. You won't forget how to use your camera. But just like you wouldn't win a bike race after taking months or years off, my photos suffered. My compositions weren't as strong. I struggled to find interesting shots. My hit rate of good photos dropped dramatically. But when I did shoot consistently, even just once a week, everything improved. Taking photos isn't enough. You need to spend time reviewing your work and being critical of it. Look at both your good shots and your bad shots. Ask yourself, what worked? Why do I like this shot? What didn't work? What makes this photo feel off or uninteresting? Improvement comes from analyzing your work and implementing what you've learned into future shots. Another tool for improvement is feedback. Try to find people who can give you constructive criticism. It's not always easy to hear, but it will help you grow. That said, photography is an art, and by definition it's subjective. There's no universal right or wrong. Seek feedback, but don't let others dictate your style. Develop your own taste, your own creative voice. As you improve, you'll start seeing the world differently than most people. Photographers develop an eye to notice things that others may miss. You'll start noticing light, everywhere. You'll see compositions before you bring the camera up to your eye. You'll be able to look at a scene and intuitively know how your camera will see it differently than your own eyes. If you're out driving or walking and suddenly think, wow, the light right now is perfect. Or if you're out looking at something and think it would make a really interesting photo from this angle. Or if it would be even better if I walked over here and looked at it from this way. Then congratulations. You've started thinking and seeing like a photographer. And that's the real secret to taking great photos. If you're ready to take your photography to the next level, set a goal to consistently take photos. It's consistency over time that equals real results. Daily shooting is great, but it's really tough to stick to. So pick something realistic like once per week. And if you're committing to that, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing for more photography content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.